This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free. And it goes to Gibbs wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Tyler one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic! He's through here! And in the end, Forest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it. Yeah! Forest are Premier League!
Oh, hello and welcome to this episode of the Red Side Trent. There's Reiss's business for you. For those watching, hello and welcome to the episode of Red Side Le Trent, where we join you after Nottingham Forest triumphant 2-1 victory at Turf Moor, which means that they will remain a Premier League club for the third consecutive season, which is a news that words we all wanted to say and hear, and now it's very much a reality. I'd like to be joined by Reiss Lane, Lee Clark, and special guests from the 1865 pod, Tom Newton, who has been a long time contributor to the pod. So now make a debut. Hopefully it's better than Origi's debut. But
I was going to say that.
see how it goes. Honestly, in all seriousness, I mean, like the game itself actually wasn't, it was very end of season-y vibes. We won't spend too much time on it, as there's quite a lot that's come out since in typical Forest fashion. But Reiss, obviously, I'll start with you. The team. Obviously, Toffolo came in for Aina. Hopefully, Aina's not got anything too serious. But it was mostly as expected. Other than that, and we were barely in our seat really until 76 seconds, whatever it was on the clock, and the Langer destroys. I think it's Charlie Taylor on that right hand side, and puts an absolute peach of a ball for Chris Woods, who finally, the third time of asking in front of an open goal, managed to put it into the roof of the net. Well, what a start!
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on a team first, it's kind of what we said on the last pod. Nuno had to be professional. I mean, the odds were 100 to 1, really. They were probably 1,000,000 to 1, weren't they? But when there's that 0.1% of dart, you've got to be professional, which is what Nuno did. And then literally that dart was pretty much extinguished after 90 seconds. I mean, the ball in from Malanga is absolutely brilliant. Right in that corridor of uncertainty, they call it. And then Wood just goes in behind the defender, and I don't think he could miss this one. I mean, he absolutely blasted. There's no chance for Arrow Muric, and yeah, I mean, that was it, wasn't it? Really, I think everyone felt so. Yeah, delighted to after 2 minutes just get that stupid dart out of the way.
Yeah, it was very much like any sort of lingering seed was pretty much like, okay, like even at that point it was like, so Burnley would have to score 7. And Luton would still have to score 6. Yeah. It was sort of like, okay, on the balance of probabilities, we're sort of leading away from the realms of possibility now. But
like I said last week, it wouldn't surprise me if Fulham beat Luton. I mean, we couldn't get any signal in the ground. I'm not sure they had even 3G up in that neck of the woods, but as obviously we knew, Fulham, apparently on the beach, Fulham beat the biggest fighting team in Premier League history by sticking 4 past them. So that's another myth dispelled. So, yeah, it was nice to have some clear daylight to finish above the drop zone in the end.
That team showed such courageous fight and plucky nature that they got 6 points from their last 16 games. What an addition to the Premier League they were. Goodness me. But anyway, Lee, before we get bogged down in semantics and attacking the recently departed, it wasn't that long before we actually were celebrating again, although this was a little bit weird because I probably should have asked Reiss this one actually, because Reiss, you were fairly insistent that Wood was maybe on, and I was like, he looked well off. From where I was, he looked well off. But Lee, what did you think? Obviously, again, Burnley, as they have done all season, caught playing out from the back. It's killed them time and time and time again, especially against teams that know how to pass the football around. And as soon as it went to Gibbs White, you sort of felt there was a chance that we could get something from that. And yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's probably a bit lucky that Wood's where he is. But what did you think?
Yeah, I'd probably share the same opinion as Reiss. I actually, obviously, I wasn't there. I was watching it on the TV, but I actually thought that the fullback was playing everyone on at the time because I thought he'd kind of done it already once. He was kind of slow to get out, and I genuinely thought when it went in that it would count. And then literally it was a case of one. The only thing that was a little bit confusing watching them sort VAR was they weren't sure who was the furthest back. You know what it's like when they have to put these lines up and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think the moment that Tom Bramall on VAR had discovered that it was actually the fullback that he was putting the line on, there was no real discussion to be had, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned Luton. It's funny. Obviously, we have to praise them for their fighting spirit, don't we? And it's almost like Burnley have got away scot free because they play really lovely, attractive football. Apparently, it's almost weird that Sky are refusing to kind of criticise them when they've got one of Man City's darling players in Vincent Kompany manage them all season. Strange how these things transpire with the media, isn't it? But yeah, Burnley v Luton in the Championship next year, I'm sure will be one that Forest fans can all cheer along to.
No, you raise a valid point, actually. I mean, I've seen quite a lot of discourse about this. Like, last season we were hammered. Like, with every single defeat, it was like, oh, Forest have signed like 50, 70 million players, and they've lost again, sort of thing. Like, we actually had a relative. I mean, we got 14 more points than they did last season. I think it's what's frustrating for me is that I listen to the rest of his football with Lineker, Shearer, and Richards. And they've even gone there before, oh, he's a really nice guy. He's been great with anyone match of the day and that sort of stuff. It's like, I don't care. I don't care if he's a nice guy in the media or he's your former teammate. Like, he spent £100 million and got 2 home wins all season. Like, why are you not saying anything about this? I don't know. Maybe you're right. It's just narratives.
I think because, was it Mike Richards who said Burnley had finished top half? They're probably embarrassed that their predictions... We said it last season, didn't we? Steve tried to come up and play nice football, realised quickly we couldn't do it, it wasn't good enough, so he had to change. Vincent Kompany's probably changed a bit too late. I know he has made a few tweaks, I've heard on TalkSport and that, but it's obviously come a bit too late. But they've spent a lot of money and it looks like they got away scot-free. But it doesn't matter.
The thing is as well, not to turn it into a Burnley podcast, but we got hammered for some of the players we signed having little impact. The players they've signed have got them 2 home wins all season. So why aren't they getting the same level of this? Is the thing. I genuinely feel like sometimes it's like you call other clubs because you think, oh, give it a rest. The media haven't got it in for you. But with things like this, it's easy for Forest fans to kind of think that some sections of the media aren't overly happy that we're actually in the Premier League again. It's almost like they wanted us to kind of just be in the Championship forevermore because the criticism between the different clubs just isn't consistent.
Staggering. I know obviously the media have their own narratives and stuff like that, but that was just farcical. I mean, they won 5 games all season. I think it's the lowest ever on record for Burnley as their entire history. I don't think they've ever won fewer games in that league season. I was reading earlier, and it's like, but again, it's okay because he was part of a Man City team that won a few titles. It's like, come on, but never mind. Also, I must admit, I did find it quite poetic that after his comments on the appeal, because that was the last thing they could actually cling on to. He was like begging in the media for this match to be like this relegation decider. It's like, we finished 8 points clear of you, even with a deduction. Like, maybe look inwards before you sort of start whipping up the media in a frenzy like that. But never mind. But anyway, Tom, obviously for the rest of the game, it actually sort of at that point it was basically done. Forest went into a bit of a shell. Didn't really need to hunt for a third, though they had opportunities. Unfortunately, Murillo still got that elusive goal. Still hadn't get that elusive goal. Obviously, he was very unlucky with a free kick and one effort that just went wide, it seems. Obviously, Gibbs White tested Muric as well with a good curler from the edge of the box. And, it was just sort of petering along. Burnley had a lot of the ball, kept passing out of play, kept sort of, cutting inside, almost half beating their fullback, half not, and then recycling it and not doing anything. And then about 15 minutes to go, I think it's Josh Cullen, I think it was, took a shot and, hits Murillo's heel. And, sort of the luck we've had all season just nestles into the corner. But were you a little bit annoyed that we sort of, could you see any more blame in that goal? Or did you think, to be fair, we've limited them from shots from range, that it's just unfortunate?
Yeah, I think it is a bit unfortunate. It's just one of those where it's just hit Murillo and Sells has got no chance. But I just wanted... I've probably been a bit greedy here, but when we got the 2 goals, I wanted to get a third and fourth and really actually, because I thought we played pretty well yesterday with the ball, even though they had more possession and everything. And as we've just spoken about, Burnley have been relatively poor, and it showed yesterday. And what they wouldn't with Chris Wood, because they've lacked that striker all season. And when Awani went out with injury kind of thing, Wood stepped up, and they've had nobody like that, Burnley. But yeah, it would have been nice to probably get a couple more goals and just put the a stamp on things and made it more comfortable than it was going into the final quarter of the game.
Yeah, it would have been nice. I think also, like from a symmetrical point of view, had we got 2 more goals, we'd have been the 3rd team this season to concede 80 goals, which we're very close to getting. But again, Teflon, Vincent Company. But that was almost pretty much all she wrote. Like it wasn't it wasn't a thriller fond. There wasn't a lot to unpack really. It was very much Forest were very professional, got the job done early, and then everyone went home happy. But the celebrations at the end I thought were great. I thought it was good that Nuno got his little moment, obviously being pushed by Gibbs White and Alanga. Obviously myself included, I've sort of criticised him for being very cold, especially with the fans, but that was quite a rare moment. He sort of like showed some warmth to everyone, I thought. What did you make of the scenes at full time?
Yeah, I think it was a touch of relief wanted again, really. I mean, last season, I guess the difference from last season is we was probably in the bottom 3 of the odds to go down last season. I think a lot of people probably expected us to go down this last season. So when we did stay up, and you look at the teams who have gone down, one's bounced straight back and 2 in the playoff final was it at the weekend. Whereas the quality this season, you look at that bottom 3, and the only one I kind of put my hat on in coming straight back up will be Burnley personally. But so yeah, it's just good to have some relief on it, and all these weeks of worrying and Forest spoiling the weekends finally came to a head, and we can just celebrate it and kind of reset in the summer and then go again for next season. Yeah, it was just not, especially for the travelling fans who travel up and down the country all season as well. So it's just, it's just nice to have that. It was a good away and want it yesterday.
Yeah, it was brilliant, mate. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic away, and it was like it's proper part atmosphere the whole way through. I'm pretty sure those Burnley fans will have the Murillo chant ringing around their ears all day. But
Tom's had enough.
Yeah, Tom's off. Obviously, we try and get him back. Lee, obviously, it's interesting. Reiss mentioned about the expectation. Obviously, like he was very right. Obviously, we're fully expected to go down last season. This season, maybe expected to kick on a little bit. All things considered, how do you sort of feel? Because like another regular like podcast interactee, is that even a word? In BCP was messaging me earlier, and he was saying like obviously, like I'm not really sure how to feel because, like, on the one hand, I'm very pleased we've stayed up, but on the other hand, the fact that we descended into that mess isn't good and shows that we've regressed slightly. Obviously, we were all expected to kick on. Do you think maybe that we collectively as a fan base maybe underestimated the Premier League a little bit and thought that because of the players we signed, we just naturally move forward without maybe underestimating the teams around us? I've probably been guilty of that, to be fair. But what do you think of like how the season's gone and the expectation level?
I think my overriding feeling is of relief. I think there's pros and cons. I think there's lots of factors in the sense of if you look at when Brighton first came up, because obviously we've got to talk about it. People say that we don't want to get bogged down with this comparison to Brighton, but if that's the club that the club are using as a benchmark, then we've got to talk about it. But if you look at Brighton when they first came up, I think they had back-to-back 17th place finishes. It certainly wasn't much higher. If it was, I think it was definitely 17th, and it might have been 15th or something like that. But still, it's got to start somewhere. And I think we've said before on this podcast that our summer recruitment, taking the goalkeepers out, was pretty good. All those players have contributed, with the exception at this stage of Sangare, but there's still hope for him. So that was an improvement. I think it's probably a little bit disappointing that the bottom 3 was so dreadfully bad, and we're the next team closest to them. But then finishing it with a positive, you kind of look at everything we've had thrown at us this season. The scandalous decisions, the 4-point deduction, which, yeah, I get that is kind of our fault as well. Again, it's lessons to be learned, but I think on the basis that I think if we'd gone down with the 4-point deduction, then obviously we'd have had to take our medicine and deal with it. But the fact we've kind of pulled ourselves together for what feels like 6 weeks at the end of the season again, it's just relieving that we're still in this league, I suppose. I mean, I said after the Everton game that I wanted to get relegated. I was officially at the stage where I wanted to go down. I'd a welcome Championship football if it meant not having to put up with VAR and all the crap that the Premier League kind of throw at you with the loving with the big six. But Reiss has said it before. No real fan, I suppose, wants to be in the Championship. You want to be. You look at that Championship again next year, and it's absolutely minging. Oxford United. Nobody wants. That's no disrespect to Oxford United, by the way.
Two grand for me.
Nobody wants to be playing. Yeah, I've not been to Oxford either, but nobody wants to be. Nobody wants to be looking forward to Oxford when you can be in the league that Man United and Arsenal are in, and those sort of clubs. So, yeah, I am relieved we're still in it. But yeah, next season's the one for me where we've got to have a better pre-season with this squad and add a bit of quality to it, much like we said we needed to do last summer. But I just feel like it's going to be a little bit different. I just don't think for 1 minute we're going to go and sell 5 or 6 of our best players. Yeah, 1 or 2 will have to leave because that's the level of club we are. But if we can add it, with us, it's always replacing them that's the issue, isn't it? So while we're down the bottom and while we find our way in the Premier League, there'll always be every summer 1 or 2 might have to leave, but if they do, it's replacing them with players who are of a similar ilk. So hopefully this season we can have a settled pre-season and we're not playing kids in all our friendlies pretty much, and we can really kick on.
Just to add as well, obviously we've got through the second season syndrome, haven't we? Which a lot of clubs do well in the first season, and then Sheffield United is one, I think, under Wilder is an example, I believe.
Oh, yeah,
have a good first season. They was pretty much nearly getting in Europe, wasn't it? First season under Wilder, and then next season stunk it out and went down. So we can't. I know it's not been as how we wanted it to go, but that is something that we've kind of got through, and hopefully now we can push on really.
Definitely, yeah, that's certainly the aim. I mean, we'll obviously talk about it more on our end of season review pods, which I believe we'll be doing on Saturday for Full House. But I agree with you, Lee. I mean, the concern for me is that obviously I don't read too much into preseason as is because I don't think you can. Like, we've had pre-season before. Like, you look at the season, like, we went up with Houghton, for example. Well, we didn't go up with Houghton, but the pre-season with Houghton, I think we 1-2 and drew 1. So we didn't lose, and we won 1 of our first 7 games. So you can't really. There's no correlation between the results in pre-season. But I completely agree with what you're saying in terms of actually recruitment, because we can't leave it till deadline day again and bring in like 9 new players, which we don't need to upset the balance of the squads. Like, the squad's unbalanced as is. So how we do next season will be determined by whether we learn from our mistakes or not over this season.
Yeah, I think in terms of results, I totally agree with you. I think I meant more like like Sangare. He came on deadline day, didn't he?
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, he was playing in the Champions League and that in the qualifiers for PSV," but the pre-season that he would have needed to get up for the level to play for PSV if he could have a full pre-season, with coaches and sports scientists that have kind of they're drilling it ahead of a Premier League campaign, then I think. It'd just be nice to have a really settled pre-season in terms of fitness and get everyone really up for it for the first couple of months, so that we're not, because that's the key. I always think it's a famous Brian Clough quote, isn't it? You always forget games in hand, you want points on the board, and I think if we could have got some points, that was a criticism of Cooper for me, because he had really tough away games, but we had easier home games at the start of the season. The only team we beat was Sheffield United, so if we get that sort of fixture list again, it'd be nice to get some more points on the board early on, because we've reaped the benefits of a really successful pre-season, I suppose.
Definitely, yeah. Tom, obviously, the nice thing about obviously beating Burnley, aside from Forest winning a game of football, was that it meant, I think, for the first time, definitely since we've been promoted, I think since 1995 as well, if I'm right, I could be wrong, is that the first time the club have won back-to-back away games in the top flight, which is insane, really. And sort of like Lee touched upon there, obviously, I know people might scoff and go, "Oh, it's Burnley, Sheffield United, etc., etc." But you still got to win those games, and we had to, really, given the position we were in, we had to win those games. So, from your perspective, have you seen a slight improvement on the road? I mean, obviously, it's 5 goals scored in the last 2 games. Okay, no clean sheet, and again, factoring in the opposition, the caliber of opposition, even. But are you sort of pleased with how things are changing on the road, or?
Yeah, I think it was like a rabbit in headlights moment for majority of the start of the season last year. Then bit by bit, we're starting to learn on the road. And I mean, on the road this year, it's been a lot better, hasn't it? But like you said,
Burnley, you'd expect to beat them, but you've still got to do it. It's all right saying it. You've got to actually go out and do it. And yesterday, I thought we was pretty comfortable, to be honest. And then in the games recently, like Sheffield United, all right, they scored a penalty early on, but we got the job done pretty comfortably there. And I think it's just a matter of being, because we've been out the Premier League for like 20 odd years before last season. Everything's changed, football's changed, and we're getting like more streetwise, and we're competing better with teams. If you look at the possession rates, it's not been like, I know yesterday was a bit different because they knocked the ball around, but without any end product. But we're getting closer to teams when we go, and we're not getting absolutely battered, and it's like fighting for our lives kind of thing. We actually are competing on the road, so things are improving. So, but next season, I want to improve even better and get more wins on the road and be more comfortable compared to this season, where obviously, if it wasn't for three worse teams than us, then we would have been in a right mess.
Yeah, definitely. Thankfully, they were. Who got a combined 66 points, by the way, the bottom three, which is the worst in Premier League history. Plucky Luton, no way. Anyway, we'll move on to your slept on it thoughts.
Red side of the Trent. Slept on it thoughts.
Right, so we haven't got that many to go through. I think most people yesterday were being jubilant in victory and also going through their bookmarks, and I certainly did on the way back, which was glorious. Oh, it's cathartic going. Some of the shockers we've had to deal with. I just patiently waiting to bide my time, and the time was yesterday was stupendous. Some of the head losses we saw was generational. But anyway, start off. Capability and function said 2022-23, we spent 18 max weeks in the bottom three. 23-24 season, 23 match weeks in 17th. We spent no match weeks in the bottom three. Objectively, this was a better season, but it doesn't really feel like it. Thank you for all the pods, you Reds. No worries. Thank you for listening. Yummy Bear says, stayed up comfortably in the end without the points deduction. We are clear of the bottom three by 10 points. I'll be honest, though, more than once this season I felt we were going down. Pleased for Wood as well. 14 goals this season kept us up, you Reds. Snowboard Pete says, thank fudge this season is over, but pleased to get the win, albeit against a relegated team. There were some good moments, but also some Forest moments as well. Imagine if we had Sells from the start. Also loved him given the inflatable back. That was quite funny, to be fair. You saw him with a beaming smile holding this inflatable ball, throwing it back to the fans. Was it an MPW man of the match and had three on him at times? That was true, actually. They were doubling and trebling up on him quite a lot. He was still wriggling away, Gibbs White. It's a very good performance from him. Premier Elliott, Sells unsung and excellent as ever, just what we needed the first half of the season. Let's give Sangare a decent pre-season. He's a long-term project. Today's fact is that in 2021, more babies were named Lucifer than being named Nigel. Oh, poor Nigel Clough. Alex Oates, friend of the pod, says, that was nice. Annoying not to keep the clean sheet. First game I didn't wear my Woodford shirt and he scored twice. It's going in the bin when I'm home. Another away win, albeit against the relegated side, but going out and getting the job done professionally, something I'll never slate. Thank God that season's over. On the topic of Wood shirts, I hope the person who has I think it was a third shirt that had Kiwi Messi 11 in the back at Trent Nav last week. I hope you're wearing that loud and proud. Mark Baker says, happy we get to go again, but we have to change our approach to games. We cannot keep playing this way next season or we'll be in the same mess again. And Malloy sums it up. Thank God the season's over, which is, I think, like Reiss touched upon earlier, it's just more relief than anything else. But yeah, massive thank you to all of you for getting your slept on it thoughts in. We'll rattle through some player performances before we move on to some other meatier subjects for Forest, which has come out over the last few days. Well, a few hours. Hasn't taken long or any chance to get quiet or acclimatise. But Reiss, I'll start with you, and I'm going to give you Sangare, who obviously came on second half sub when Nate got injured. Yes, I know it's a divisive one. I actually felt the reason why I gave you this is because you said to me in the grounds, we need number 6 out here just to stop the puzzle gaps a bit. So Sangare did come on, and
I thought he did okay when he come on, but it's got to a point where the division's that bad into in the fan base. We're kind of on the side of wanting and thinking that Sangare can be good for us. We're kind of praising him for doing things that he should be doing. You know what I mean? So I thought he'd come on and did okay. Going forward, if I had to put money on it, it wouldn't surprise me if he was to leave in the summer, if I'm going to be honest. And just what I like kept my eye on him yesterday. I thought he'd come on and put himself about and that, but when I see like what the rapport he had at PSV and the rapport he has with Ivory Coast, that doesn't seem to be here at Forest. Now I don't know whether that's not is a bit kind of disappointed / embarrassed how this season's gone for him with him being the record signing, and he's, let's be frank about this, being kept out of the team by a player in Ryan Yates who's completely divides the fan base, whether he's good enough or not, who's come through the academy. So I'm not sure kind of what to think going forward. I seen someone I've read a few comments on Twitter today, a fan saying, I just don't think he's got the legs for the Premier League, which is something I said when we did come up, that you do need legs in that midfield. I guess if he is to stay, get a good pre-season under him, and we'll have to see. We'll have to see because, at the end of the day, he either needs to play and show the money we've forked out for him and show why we've brought him, or he's a waste of time being sat on our bench with a 35 million hole in the pocket. We should be looking to move him on if that's the case. So I guess we'll see on Sangare. I'm still got my fingers crossed because what I saw, I know it is in the Dutch league, but he has, Champions League as well. What I saw from him at PSV, I've watched stuff of him and people can say, oh, it's only YouTube and this and that. I kind of don't know what the difference is. It's just so much of a difference. I don't know whether that's good, and it probably is because of the Premier League. He might not be up to speed. So I think if he is here next season, probably we'll see in a couple of months' time at the start of the new season where we're at with him. I think.
I kind of agree with what Lee was saying, because I think that the lack of preseason in England has probably hurt him a lot. I don't buy this notion he hasn't got the legs for the Premier League. Okay. Like this was Sirianos' number one target. Sirianos' profile is athletic, pacey, quick, strong, agile, and more importantly, suited to the top flight, especially the English one. So I don't buy that logic at all. And we've shown it in glimpses. We've seen it with him as well, where no one was questioning whether he was up for the pace of the game when he's been playing well, for example. I think he's just taken a bit of time to adjust, which is more than fair enough. But again, you have this, obviously, because he's been signed for so much money, £30 million, you've expected to see fans expect more from him, ultimately.
Yeah, which is right.
Which is completely fair enough. Yeah,
it's just in moments he does look off the pace for me. There was moments yesterday when I said to you, Christian, there was where he was cutting ball. There was balls coming across the edge of our box, and he was cutting them out. I think he headed one out, he cut one out. There was one where he hassled really, really well. The ref gave a foul. I thought it was a good tackle. I thought he hooked his leg round the tackle.
Yeah, you're right. That was a good
tackle. Like that. But then other times, I just think he looks a bit off the pace. So I guess we'll see. We need a resolution, I think, is the best way to describe it. He either, we've got to get him in the team, get him playing, and he's got to give us something as well and play well. Or you may as well just look to find him another club, because we can't have £35 million players sat on the bench when we're fighting relegation. It's ridiculous. They need to be in the team playing. But like I said, he's got to give us something as well.
He said, he played half an hour yesterday. One clearance, one block shot, and 2 interceptions. He did his job. That's exactly what he came in to do. He's exactly what he wanted to do. So it's all well and good saying give you something, but he just has.
I do think as well that he probably would be better in a midfield three. And when we did sign him, he was playing a three in midfield, weren't we, under Cooper?
He beat Venom with him in midfield as a free, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like that number 6, where he's your shield in front of your back four, and then you've got 2 energetic midfielders next to him. But we'll have to wait.
I'm still I don't buy that, to be honest. Like I said, if you look at again the Newcastle game, for example, I know obviously that's the go-to.
Yeah, he played with a 2 that game, didn't he?
Yeah, he ran the midfield on his own that day. Obviously I know when we played West Ham as well, and that might have been a 3 that day at London Stadium. Again, he was quality that day as well. I just think that he has been inconsistent, but when he's played well, he's played really well. But again, because of the outlay, we don't really tolerate it when he's played poorly. And I think, if you look at, we've had it with Wood, we had it with Hudson-Odoi, we had it with Taiwo, we had it with so many players. Mangala was another example where we just wrote them off and just weren't patient with them. Even Williams, and I'm fully guilty of that. I'd have had Williams sent to Wrexham at the start of the season. And now he's probably our first choice right back. So, like, you know, I just think that as a fan base, we collectively aren't very patient with players, and I really hope he gets a chance to prove it right, because ultimately it benefits the club. Like,
yeah, of
we've
course,
spent that much money on it.
Well,
Like,
I'm still holding out hope, and I hope he does. I hope he does come good for us. But you know, I'm just undecided at the minute, really.
I agree with bits of both what you've both said there, but I think the key with Sangare is, I think if you talk about the leg situation, and I'm bringing him into it because it's contextual, so bear with me. But if you think about Ryan Yates has got legs. You wouldn't want a midfield packed with Ryan Yates type players, though. The challenge for me isn't Sangare per se; it's finding the players around him in that area, a la Newcastle away, where he can thrive and where he can do even West Ham away. I thought he was pretty decent at West Ham as well, to be fair, when he made the raking pass for Gibbs White to tee up Awoniyi for the first goal. So it's like horses for courses to me. I think it's finding a solution where Sangare plays and you've got the right players around him.
He's shown glimpses. There's no denying he showed glimpses, but
Reiss, you are spot on when you say for 30 million. I agree. I do agree. You kind of you've got to expect him to kind of do a little bit more as well.
Of course, and I just like, that's what I mean. I'm looking at his body language and thinking, can you show a bit more yesterday? Is what I'm saying. And I looked at his body language and thinking, I'm still kind of unsure.
I mean, what do you want him to do? Like, I think that's really hard. What do you actually want him to do? Like, he was very happy at full time. Like, do you want him like run around like a madman because you know he's got to show passion to the club? Like, what do you mean by show body language? I don't really get what you mean there.
Probably look into like the celebrations at the end. He was kind of just at the back, wanted kind of as if he was kind of.
He got involved in the Akate and Koyate. Then for
we're going to see, aren't we going forward?
Can just what was the game where he got dragged off at? Was it half time?
Palace
as well, yeah.
And the fans booed him. Do you really think he's going to be going to be front and centre of the celebrations yesterday when a minority of the fan bases booed him and he's had a really
his confidence is probably on the floor, and to be honest, from a footballer's perspective, if I've just come in from a side who got to the knockout stage of the Champions League this season, also won the Eredivisie, and I'm scrapping relegation in the Premier League, I'd probably be a bit peed off, let's be honest, because I bet you can imagine probably Marinakis Jr. sold him a dream and said, yeah, we're gonna, as Hudson-Odoi said in his interview at the season, yeah, we want to finish in the top 10. It's not happened, and we're scrapping relegation, whereas mates and back in Eindhoven are picking up a trophy. So I bet Dominguez is the exact same. He's left Bologna as captain. They've qualified for the Champions League. And Remo Freuler, who, last season was in a relegation battle with us, fans says no, he's not good enough for this league. He's playing the Champions League again next season.
Surely that could be the prime example, though. Like, look how quick we were to write Freuler off because he wasn't this conductorist person we thought he would be. Primarily because he wasn't played as we thought, he probably thought he would be when he came over. So we can't just write players off who've come to a new country after one season.
Yeah, what just obviously concerns me is that change of country. I'm a Sangare fan, and I've defended him a lot on this podcast, as we all have. I'm just kind of on that fence a minute, and we'll see going forward. That's all we can do. What I'm saying is, if he isn't going to be in our team or in our plans, then we need to get some money back for him, because there's no point in having a 35 million hole sat on the bench.
Yeah, obviously, I'd like to hope that'd be a last resort, but I do agree with you. Then push comes to shove, it's basically like, yeah, you got to go. Then he has to go. There's no.
That's if he wants to stay as well.
Yeah, of course.
If a club in Europe comes in, a team who's going to be playing the Champions League, you might say, "Oh, actually, I want to go back and play in Europe." I don't know.
Well, we might be speculating here, but another thing is he actually settled in Nottingham? Because he obviously, when he come, if you saw the interview, English isn't a strong point of it, and you come into a different culture and everything would have been rushed through on that final day. And it's been, like I said earlier, it's very much stop-start. Wasn't he ill around about Christmas where he lost quite a bit of weight or something, and they tried to get back? It was the
Everton game, wasn't it? The Everton game, and then obviously he went to AFCON and he had his ankle decapitated by Mane. Like, he's had a pretty rough ride this season, to be fair.
Yeah, well, Tom makes a good point. If he's got an agent in his ear on deadline day, and he's got to make a decision where you might, after a few months, and it happens in football, it happens in life. A few months in, you might think, "Oh, Jesus, I don't actually fancy this." But we'll see. That's all we can really say going forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Still optimistic, but we'll see. Lee, I'm going to give you Montiel. because Montiel has actually rather weirdly become this lucky charm, if you like, for Forest, where I think the only losses he's had to a team where he started, for example, I think the only surprise one was Brentford. Like, generally speaking, we've lost to Spurs, obviously lost to Arsenal, lost to, obviously made a mistake in that game, City twice, lost to Chelsea. Obviously, both those are Sky Six. So, but generally speaking, whenever he's played, I think we've won 4 games that he started in. I think he's only made like 9 starts. And I thought yesterday, to be fair, like won a lot. I think he won the most tackles on the pitch out of anyone else, and generally looked decent. What did you think?
Yeah, I'll say what I said in our group chat this morning. File Gonzalo Montiel under nowhere near as bad as some of our fans make out that he is. Yeah, he's had his moments, much like I think when you're a team that finishes 4th bottom over the course of a season, every single player is going to have some moments where they could have probably done better. If there were some people listening now thinking, "What's he on about? God, he's awful." I'll go even further and say I genuinely don't think there's much between Montiel and Nico Williams. I think as good as Williams has been this season, I think with a run of games, Montiel has shown that he's more than capable of playing in that same position. So, yeah, I mean, if you can ask me the question, would I sign him? I mean, there's talks now that he might be available for as little as 4 million. I mean, I still don't think I'd sign him permanently. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the extra baggage that he potentially brings, allegedly. I know we can't speculate too much on that. I don't know if that's a factor. I just probably think that even for that money, there probably is someone out there who is a little bit better, who can even be an upgrade on Williams and who can possibly come in and make that position, really nail it down and make it his own. But yeah, I think he's been fine for us. I think he's been, like you said, Christian, a lot of our better performances when we've had better results, he's played. He did get the most tackles on the pitch yesterday with 6, 2 interceptions, a clearance, a blocked shot, average rating of 7.35, which was the highest of any Forest player other than Chris Wood. So I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? I think he was fine yesterday. Took one early on in the face, didn't he, and ended up with a silly bandage around his head, but. Hey ho, yeah, he was good. I thought he was good. I think, like I say, I go back to what I said at the top of my analysis of him. He's been nowhere near as bad as people made out. Obviously, there was a goal against Chelsea last week, wasn't there? Where I think it was Mudryk slipped in behind him and scored. How many times have we seen Williams do that for Forest? Let's at least be consistent with our criticism of these players. I know that Montiel's not our player, but Williams does that all the time. He's still young and he's still learning. Admittedly, Montiel's a bit further down the line. He's more of an established player now. And perhaps there's an argument that he shouldn't be making those silly mistakes. But yeah, much of a muchness with our right backs for me.
Reiss?
Yeah, I must say, I think Montiel's okay. And at the end of the day in life, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
It's just that as a football club, the PR for things like this in this day and age, I don't think it's worth going down that slippery slope, to be honest. Especially as well when you look at the club and they're setting up a girls' fan group now. It wouldn't be good for the club if he is proved guilty in the future, or even, you know what I mean. So yeah, I don't think that's. To be honest, it's probably a player I wouldn't have even, with them allegations, I wouldn't have even touched personally. But that decision's not for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I was just wondering actually, was that the first time he's worn the Argentina kit this season? Because if it was, it might explain why he plays so well, to be honest.
Well, you can't track it because Murillo's Brazilian and he's got Argentina kit. So, and Danilo, who was man of Manchester.
Yeah, it's not. He nearly scored against Palace away, didn't he, Montiel, when he came on?
Oh yeah, of course he did. Yeah, again,
he had a really good effort, didn't he?
We wore it at Bristol City in the cup, I believe, and he played that night.
He kept a clean sheet.
He actually should have scored that night as well.
Goodness me. Maybe that was a secret all along. Just put him in the Argentina kit, like win us all these trophies going. Tom, I'm going to give you Danilo last. Who obviously Reiss just mentioned him. He's man of the match. I also thought Danilo played very, very well yesterday. And the more I see him, the more I'm just so happy he's in our midfield. But how did you think he played?
Yeah, brilliant again, and he's been brilliant for the last month, hasn't he? And he just gives you that like legs in midfield, which we mentioned earlier, and he wants to get on the ball, and he's that box to box midfielder what we want in the side. And yeah, I like him, and hopefully he'll be here for many years to come, because I think he's really important to how we want to play.
Yeah. very, very good footballer, and just very glad he's our player. But
Ju-
then
Just,
we got
just to finish on Danilo, actually, as well, it's funny because it kind of ties in with what we've been talking about. Danilo's a prime example of what can happen if even if you're having a pretty bad game, you still get picked for the next one. He just all season he's just needed a run of games, and he's one player that I actually think will be kind of ruined that the season's finished already because he's kind of just getting going into a really good run of form, and now he's going to have to start all again next year.
He's had a stop-start season, Danilo, and in my opinion, you'd probably say still been the best centre mid at the club this season.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
I'd agree.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, we can move on to a few other things topical. Obviously, as I'm sure you would have seen, Wolves decided to. Oh yeah, especially when Checo Kuyasa, by the way, that was his last farewell game. Of course, came on with like 2 minutes to go and did a job, which is great. But we'll say again, cheers for the memories, Checo. Obviously, VAR was brought into news because Wolves decided to motion against it, which I thought was bold. It also basically, for me, was a vote of no confidence in PGMOL from Wolves. And I think we did ask you as well, actually, what you thought. So yeah, we did a poll, obviously on the basis of the proposal, and 629 of you voted, and 90% of you said to bin VAR. So that's quite overwhelming from a fan perspective. Reiss, obviously, I'll start with you. What do you think of it, first and foremost? Just the motion, I mean, do you think that what's your thoughts on the matter? Would you rather get rid of it? Would you rather keep it? Like, where are you with it at the minute?
Well, the fact of the matter is, it will be kept.
But that's what would you want from it? Yeah.
What would I do? Oh wow, what would I do? Tear the old refereeing system up, I think is what I'd do. But I go back to the start, and because I was someone who thought VAR could be a good thing for the game, because what you wanted to do is eradicate the errors out of the game. And the two best examples are, I mean, the Maradona hand of God. I know there'll be people in Glasgow and Buenos Aires who'll disagree with that, but that's for them to think. And you've obviously the Lampard goal against Germany at the South Africa World Cup, I believe it was. Obviously now we've got goal line technology for that, which is a good thing because that's absolute. But and I'm not sure if you guys have seen the video. There's a video of Anthony Taylor, and I think it's Neil Swarbrick Lee, I believe. Yeah. And they're talking when they're bringing in VAR of, we only want to use it for clear and obvious errors, i.e. Maradona handball, clear obvious error. So what did they do from the start? Because people were a lot of people probably on the fence with it. They decided to scrutinise every decision and then alienate, I'd say, like that poll, 90%, well, 100% of football fans. And it's been a slippery slope ever since. You've had no consistency, as we've seen this season. They're making subjective decisions instead of letting the referee ref on the pitch. They're going to VAR and trying to overrule it. I think it's been in 5 years now. The English Premier League wanted to do it different to Europe as well. We made the stupid mistake at the start of the season. The club, they're not voting in the semi-automated offsides. Yep. So it's been pretty much really a disaster so far. And they can throw these stats out to do on TalkSport. Oh, there's been 15% better decisions. But like yesterday, Christian, we stood in the ground with the Chris Wood goal. It looked miles on side. I've seen the replay, and we stood there for 2 or 3 minutes not knowing what's going on. And I said to you, "Oh, this must be tight." And you look and you look on the highlights; it's quite a bit of daylight. You know what I mean? It's like, why is it taking so long? So that is something they've got to going forward. I mean, the technology is there for it to get better, but they don't seem to want to do it. And it's like, oh, we need to go at IFAB's pace. Well, if you want. At the end of the day, they don't care about football fans, do we? It's just a background noise is the truth. But they need to. They've got so much technology in the world now. They need to get it as to absolute as possible. Like the Newcastle Arsenal one, where they haven't got a camera angle to know if the ball's gone out or not. It's bleeding. It's ridiculous. Get sensors in the ball. Get sensors in the shirts. You've got so many options that they can do to make things quicker. Thankfully, the semi-automated offsides are coming in. And to be honest, the Wolves page, they made some brilliant points. It's just that, unfortunately, probably for Wolves' perspective, not gone and did the research of any other Premier League clubs, and it'll probably be just us and them who will vote for it. But they have mentioned about a lighter version, haven't they?
Yeah, VAR Lite, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but until they improve it all round, as like, adding extra bits of technology, which they've got, like that Newcastle Arsenal game just mentioned, it's, you're always going to have the spontaneity of the goal celebration, but it needs to be so much quicker. It's nowhere near quick enough. And that's why, 90% of people want it gone. And to be honest, I'd put my mortgage on it, be staying. But if there was to scrap it, you'd want that money invested into the refereeing standards, because the standard is, unfortunately, with years of Mike Riley's robotic approach, it's dropped to a level which isn't good enough for the best league in the world, in my opinion.
No, I agree. As I've said before, obviously, like Anthony Taylor, especially, like, I feel if Anthony Taylor was German, for example, he wouldn't even be getting Bundesliga 2 games. And yet here he is in the top 1% of UK referees, for example. It's just a very arrogant, single-minded approach, which has been led by Mike Riley. Very correct. That Wolves statement made so many good points, especially the over-analysis of every decision. Lee, obviously, you've got maybe a bit more skin in the game than we do, obviously being an official yourself. What do you make of the whole discourse and whatnot?
I mean, we could make an hour-long podcast on VAR, couldn't we, I suppose? Yeah, I agree with what Reiss says. It will be here to stay, I think. I'd be amazed if it got voted out. Just to try and add something different. I think if you scrapped VAR, I don't think you need to necessarily put the money into the refereeing, because I've said it before and I stick by it. VAR has made some, and I don't mean Anthony Taylor, some pretty good referees look absolutely woeful. Throw them back the power, give them the power back. What do you start refereeing before? Because you want to make the decisions. With VAR, they don't have to make any, because they know that VAR will 9 times out of 10 back them up. So yeah, I think that's just something I'd slightly disagree with. I've said before as well, and I stick by it. I think once you're in the Premier League, the fact that you're on it then until the end of time, till you come, to retirement age, is completely rubbish. I think if you make a monumental mistake once, fine, human error, fair enough. If you start doing it 2 or 3 times in the space of 1 month, why should you not be doing Shrewsbury in midweek? Why should you not be doing VAR for someone who is coming up through the ranks on a lower game? I just don't. In any way, if I kept making constant mistakes in my job, I'd get some sort of, there'd be some sort of repercussion. So I don't understand why it's any different with the Premier League referees. But yeah, I think it will be here to stay. There's lots of opinions and lots of bits and bobs doing the rounds in there, and some of it doesn't make a deal of sense. I mean, people say that you need an ex-pro in there. I mean, anyone who listened to Stephen Warnock on Ref Watch this morning, he gave a glowing audition for not having referees anywhere near Stockley Park, not having former pros anywhere near Stockley Park. He didn't think Nelson Semedo's tackle yesterday was a red card. I mean, yeah, I can just imagine if Nelson Semedo had tackled him like that when he was a player. I'm sure he'd probably have exactly the same opinion. So yeah, I mean that's just, again, after the Everton game, Stan Collymore was the same. He didn't think any 3 of our appeals were penalties. So yeah, leave that argument at the door with me. But yeah, I just think it's here to stay. I've said before, I don't really know how we improve it. I think just have a bit more accountability for constant mistakes, not 1 or 2 here and there.
Well, it was brought in as a tool, but they've let it overrule the actual person who's in charge of the game. That's the problem. And like I said about that video, that's what they said they was going to do, and they basically sold, a lot of football fans a pup with what they've done to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. So, Tom, anything else to add?
I thought Lee probably said we can't do this. So I'm sure Howard Webb's also mentioned it before, of having like a cricket style appeal system. So the captain or the manager has 2 appeals each, and then if they want a decision changing or to be looked at, you say we're going to appeal against that kind of thing, and then they can have a look at it that way. But I think first and foremost, the power's got to be back to the referees, because they've just become robots and they're scared stiff of making any on-field decisions wrong. And then it all goes back to VAR. Then obviously you've got like 2 or 3 minutes trying to come up with the right decision, and the football fan doesn't want that. Like you mentioned earlier, that we didn't have a clue what was happening with the Chris Wood goal yesterday, and yeah, And a lot of fans are like, "Oh, should we celebrate a goal? Shouldn't we?" And it's just killing the game, isn't it? In a way that you can't celebrate a goal as you should do when you go into a football match. So, yeah, the power's got to be back to the referees in my eyes. And whether you suspend VAR for a year and just like fine, go through it with a fine tooth comb and make it better, whether that's a way of doing things, I don't know. But it's got to improve. And yeah, like I said, the power's got to be back to the officials on the pitch.
You're on mute.
Yeah, certainly a big discussion. I don't know. I was very pro VAR because I saw like in 2018 World Cup, I saw the fact that it like Reiss said, it was meant to be used every 3 to 4 games. It wasn't meant to be used every single match. It was meant to be used only as and when something very blatant happens. But it's just taken over now, isn't it? It's just, I think in its current form, we should move away from it because it's just a mess. Like I feel like Lee said, probably it's exposed some of the refs for their ability, if that makes sense, or made them look very bad, to be a very polite term. And yeah, I just think we're miles behind. Like you watch a European night, for example. I know obviously the Premier League have obviously got very nervous about this whole proposition and now sort of spoken about bringing in like European refs and stuff like that. I mean, Jared Gillett was brought in for Australia, for example, so it's not like they haven't got form for this. But you watch the Champions League night, it's flawless. The use of it is completely flawless. Then really, whenever there's an issue, it's because of English officials. And it's just so frustrating. Like, I know obviously people say about the Newcastle game with PSG, but that was more implementing UEFA's super strict rules rather than VAR actually being at fault. So it's just so far annoying seeing how far behind we are from the rest of the world. It's just, yeah, a lot of work needs to be done. But obviously we've got to move on back to Forest. Because obviously we can't have nice things for very long. Less than 24 hours, obviously this morning, Fab Romano came out and said about how Nuno isn't necessarily safe. There's now been reports from Italy, some audacious, ambitious reports, may I add, that we've looking at hiring Roberto De Zerbi, who of course wouldn't come with any compensation package. He's walked away free of charge with no gardening leave at Brighton. Reiss, what do you think? I mean, would you be happy with Nuno? I mean, or if De Zerbi was viable, would you go all out for him? What do you think? I can't believe I'm saying these words, to be honest.
No, you got no chance of getting in. And to be honest, I think if there was a viability, that it could end up being a bit fire meeting fire, couldn't it? I mean, Tony Bloom's quite a very sensible businessman and quite mild mannered, and it looks like he's even fell out with him. So that isn't going to happen. His stock's too high with respect for a club like us. He might go away and take a break, or but Bayern Munich still after a manager, so that might materialise, as maybe Man United will as well. Like last week I said, I'm torn. I'm still a bit torn. It's kind of one of them where if I woke up tomorrow morning, I got a message saying Nuno's gone, it'd be like, oh, right, okay. It wouldn't be like where hit you in the feels like when Steve Cooper left. You know what I mean? But I also wouldn't be adverse to Nuno getting a pre-season, trimming the squad, because he is right. The squad is far too unbalanced. There's been too many players in that squad who've been signed by different people in terms of recruitment. Thankfully, you look at some of the loan signings and obviously some players out of contract, so there'll be a lot of players going. I mean, we've got, God, how many senior players have we got out on loan? Most of the most Premier League clubs, I imagine, would have some youngsters out on loan, but not loads and loads of senior players. So you've got all them to come back. So it does need shaping, but it needs the decision, whatever way it is, needs making as soon as possible, because we don't want to be going into, let's say the end of June and it's still darts, or if we go into the start of next season where, I don't know, we don't, we get off to a little bit of a ropey start if we've got some tricky fixtures, for example, and we're getting leaks to the media like we did with Cooper, where it's, oh yeah, he's under pressure, because that's helping nobody. And that is something that is a gripe with the board, that they leak stuff to the media, because do it in private, not in the public domain, because it's just not helping anybody. And these grotty journalists love to twist stuff as well, as we all know, in the media. So yeah, I'm kind of like that with it. If he does get to go into next season, I'm pretty content. If he was to leave, then I just hope we've kind of got a plan and we know what kind of road we're going to go down, really.
Lee, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'd agree with most of that. I think I'd like to see him stay. I think just for continuity purposes, and I think he's shown with our performances. I think even when we've had bad results, in large, the performance level has been night and day
Yeah.
from when Cooper was here. What I would say is, I still think there's lots of people who can't let go on the fact that he's the man who replaced Cooper. Obviously, that's not his fault. He decided to take a job. Yeah, Cooper will forever be grateful for what Cooper did, but we've got to move on at some point. And I think he's been dealt a pretty bad hand, to be fair. I mean, we had his first game. We probably should have beat Bournemouth thanks to Rob Jones. We won't go into that. And then we won 2 on the trot, didn't we? So, and then obviously everyone goes off to the AFCON. So I think he's been dealt a pretty bad hand. And I think on the basis that he's essentially, he's fulfilled his remit by keeping us up. So why would he not deserve a chance to build on that? And I just think it's for the best. If you can't let someone come in for 6 months and have a bit of a transfer window where you can't really spend anything anyway, and not give them a chance to have set all the plans for pre-season, identify 2 or 3 players that he wants to bring to the club, and give him another crack. So yeah, that's where I am.
Tom?
I'd keep him just because, like Lee says, he's been given a poor hand and everything, and you need like continuity going into next season. You can't have this going into next season. Oh, is he going to be the manager in 3 games' time, kind of thing? You've got to have a clear vision now. We've got a big summer in terms of like addressing the imbalanced squad, and if everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet, it's going to put us in good stead for next season. So I'd keep him, and then obviously go with what he recommends in terms of who needs to go, what needs to come in, and everything. Because like we know, chopping in managers every 5 minutes doesn't get you anywhere quick, does it? So yeah, I'd keep him, and then obviously go again next season with him.
Yeah, I agree with all you. To be fair, I think all you very, very individual valid points. I think that I think he's earned the right. I do think he's earned the right to have a go. I mean, his remit was to keep us up. He did that. I think that he was dealt a terrible hand with, whether it be AFCONs, whether it be refs, AFCONs, sorry, whether it be the points deduction fiasco and not knowing whether we're going to win either win meant anything or not, or all these things. Obviously, with an imbalanced squad as well. I feel like I think over the last 10 games as well. I think we've lost 5, won 3, and drawn 2. I think that was right, or something like that, or something like that. Oh, no, that's it. So it was 1-3, drawn 3, and lost 5. But obviously, we played Chelsea, City, and Liverpool in that last 10 runs. And I think over the course of the season, that's about 44, 45 points, which we snap your hand off for that after the last 2 seasons we've had, where it's been survive at all costs. If you could say we finished about 45 points, would have got you about 14th this season, I think. So, I know obviously it's not Marinakis, getting into the Champions League, but that's not going to happen overnight. And I don't. The De Zerbi thing is just insane to me.
I just think that's paper talk.
Yeah, didn't Nuno lose Awani and Wood in the same week? We didn't have a striker of any note, did we, for about a 2-week period? Around about when
didn't we? So yeah, no striker.
But yeah, was it around about when we played Liverpool, something like that? So
yes, it was. Yeah,
he's been dealt with it. So yeah,
something I must just say as well. I know the people are saying, like you just said, Christian, the remit was to keep us in the league. I personally don't think, from Marinakis' perspective, that would have been his remit. I think Marinakis would have been looking at higher. I know we've got the points deduction to consider, but I get the feeling this is why this news has come out. I think probably Marinakis would have wanted to save, 5 games ago, and being in probably the position where, say, Everton are, for example.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right, especially with the level of investment he's put into the club as well, which in itself is a bit of a concern because, like I touched upon earlier, I think we're still trying to run before we can walk in this league.
Well, yeah, because Stefan Borson does the TalkSport FFP. He said we budgeted the first season, I think it was to finish 12th or 14th. And then, like I said in pre-season, end of the transfer window, Hudson-Odoi was like, yeah, we want to finish in the top 10. This is probably why you're attracting players from the likes, Bologna's captain, Sangare. This is why you're selling them a dream. Oh, yeah, we can finish top 10 this season, and next season we might get in the Conference League. Well, It's a bloody hard league, and everybody's spending in this league as well. It's not like just because Forest has spent 150 million doesn't mean everyone else stood still. Everyone else is spending as well, trying to get better. It's very, very hard.
And another thing, you probably look at like the Palace squad, and they've got like better players than us, pound for pound, if you know what I mean. But it's only in the last month, 6 weeks that they've actually looked like they could break into the top 10 with Glasner. So and we're probably like going to be a few transfer windows behind them in terms of what quality we can bring in. So like you says, everybody's evolving.
They've been in the Prem 10 years now, for example, haven't they? And to be honest, I know he has come in, and I won't discredit Glasner, but they've been safe for ages. They can play nice little football at the minute. Let's see how they go next season if they're scrapping at the bottom, but we'll see.
Same thing happened last
season for them.
Yeah, same thing happened last season. They were safe, and they didn't beat Leeds towards the end of the season 6-1 or something like that.
Yeah, 5-1 at Ellen Road. Yeah,
that's what I was just going to say on Glasner. I think a lot of people are getting kind of uptight because we were linked with Glasner first. I mean, let's see. He might prove me wrong here, but let's see how good Glasner is if Eze and Oleeeeee go. Friedman goes, so the recruitment's not quite as in line as it was. Let's see how good he is with that Palace squad then. Like you just said, Reiss, they've been safe for a while now. The shackles come off sometimes, don't they? And it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, that's not discrediting because he does look a really good appointment.
Yeah,
I know Hopkin looking to Kerwan, who we had on the pod, says they're playing some absolutely unbelievable football, but it is a bit easier in the sun and when you're safe. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think also Tom made a good point. They basically did this last season as well, Palace. Like, they ended very struggling with Hodgson. They set the manager. It's basically rinse and repeat season for them, just finishing a place higher. So, yeah, I think you're right. We'll see how it goes. And obviously, as well, I don't think we wouldn't have been that patient with Glasner. Look how it took him 6, 7, 8 games to get going at Palace. We'd have wanted him gone by then. So, that's football ultimately. And the main thing is, despite everything, despite playing a point deduction goal in Matt Turner, despite conceding an ungodly amount of goals from set pieces, despite all the terrible refereeing decisions we had, which is amplified by about 1 billion compared to previous years, despite all the injuries and whatnot, we're still a Premier League club next season. So fantastic news. And we signed off with a win as well. So thank you for that, Forest. So as for us, we have our end of season podcast on Saturday, which we'll be doing. That'll be quite fun. Obviously, go through a few topics as well, including the grounds situation, which we didn't have time to do today. So that'll be keep an eye out for that. As well, as you probably know or have seen, I'm obviously playing in a charity match on behalf of Roadside Trent at Molyneux on Friday, which was considerably less than the City Ground, but we won't go into that. And of course, all that's for Mind Charity as well. I'll post a link in the description below, but any donation, no matter how small, will be incredibly grateful and valued. But yeah, the main thing is, despite the wishes of Derby and Luton, Premier League again, LA. So we'll see you on Saturday, and come on, you Reds.